cake pops. If everyone's turned to that recipe, you'll see that really cake pops are two ingredients: cake and something to put on top of cake. I prefer to use melting chocolate because it helps hold the shapes of them, and you can stick whatever you want into it. Okay, I've done some plain already, and we're gonna do some with sprinkles. You can buy any form of edible candy that you can imagine. And they sell all sorts, from sugars to gems to gold flake to silver flake to Halloween as bats and ghosts and goblins, okay? Any type of miniature edible candy will work for the outside of your cake. And basically, once you melt your chocolate, when it's still hot and liquid, you dip it in whatever sprinkles you have. Now, before we start messing up with our cake, we're gonna start with our chocolate. Now, it calls for 1 pack of baker's bark. This is baker's bark, right? It looks like an ice cube tray when it comes out of the package, and it comes out in little ice cube shaped blocks, white or chocolate. White chocolate isn't really chocolate at all, it's just sugar. But since we're using chocolate in our red velvet, I figured we'd go with white. And I know someone's going to ask, in the bottom of this bowl, there were some chocolate morsels, white chocolate. I had them laying around. I figured we might as well add them to and use it. Doesn't hurt anything, won't hurt anything at all, okay? When you melt chocolate, there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either use a double boiler, which is a pot of water with a metal bowl rested on top and your chocolate in, or you can microwave it, okay? I'm going to microwave it so I can show you how. You can only do it for 30 to 45 second intervals at a time. That is it. Anything over 45 seconds and your chocolate will lose its moisture, it will burn and turn rock hard instantly, okay? So it's a little bit more time consuming because you have to constantly open and close the microwaves, but it's an easier way and it's a much quicker way than a double boiler. With a double boiler, I could actually use this pot right here. You would simply just set another bowl inside of it and slowly start to mix it down. How many people have gas ranges? Anybody? Okay. The only thing you have to worry about with double boilers is you'll tend to get one side that gets a little bit hotter. If the bowl doesn't fit exact, that steam will come out one side constantly, and that little bit of chocolate that comes up the edge of your bowl will burn instantly, okay? So if you're going to do it, make sure you stir it constantly with a rubber spatula and you keep it knocked down to the center of the bowl the best you can. While that's working, we are going to start with our cake, okay? Red velvet cake, you can get a box and you can make it. You can buy just undecorated rounds in any grocery store. And all we're going to do is break it up so our mixer doesn't have to work quite as hard. While this is simmering, we're going to turn this down a little bit. Now, the first 3 or 4 times, you're hardly going to see anything. You're going to say, why am I doing this like this? And the reason is because it's going to go from being really chunky to really liquid very quickly. And if you don't work with it patiently, it will burn, right? So, we have our red velvet cake in here. Red velvet cake, chocolate cake, white cake, any kind of cake you can think of will work for this. Please make sure you turn it on 1 or 2 first. Everyone laughs because everyone in this room knows why I say that. Once it starts to break down and it crumbles and it falls to the bottom of the bowl, by all means turn it up. Okay. For those of you who don't know, I say turn it on low first because if you turn it on high, it will throw red velvet cake from one end of your home to the other and out every window you have open, I promise. It doesn't matter. I watched a young lady making meringue one day, put powdered sugar and egg whites in a mixer and not realize it was set on 3, which is the highest setting for commercial mixers. And by the time she hit that switch, there was a mushroom cloud that filled the kitchen. And she had the most priceless face you've ever seen on anyone in your life. Okay, this bowl has only been in there a minute and a half now, on 45 seconds, and it's already relatively hot to touch. And you can see these big chunks, any place they're touching the bowl, are starting to break down already. Told you, it's a little time consuming, but it's quicker than doing it in a double boil. Okay, our cake mix. Basically, all we did was take a perfectly good cake and smash it, okay? How many people have made cakes and gone to take them out of a pan and had them break in half or crumble and been like, all right, now what do I do with it? Perfect example of what we can do with it, okay? You can get a scoop, or you can just do it freehand. Basically, all you want to do is take your cake into about a 3/4 to a 1 ounce size ball and make little tiny meatballs or cake balls out of them, okay? One 8-inch round cake should give you about 15 cake pops, okay? I'm gonna let that sit in there for a second and let the heat kind of help it along. And basically, you're rolling them out the same way you would roll out a meatball or a dough ball. You just want to kind of smash them and make sure they're tight. If you don't have enough, if it's too small, add a little bit to it. It'll just keep packing together. Who knows what red velvet cake actually is? Go ahead. It's just a chocolate cake with red food coloring in it. Back before they made food coloring. It's also what they used to dye Easter eggs with. Because they didn't have, back then you just made beet juice and it worked. Red velvet cake is so special and it's so wonderful, and it's chocolate cake with red food coloring. Not a whole lot special. But it looks cool and it does taste slightly different. It will make your tongue red because of the red food coloring. Yeah, and anything else that comes in contact with. Make sure you make a whole lot of these and you give them to your kids or grandkids and send them home with them. I got wood floors, it's okay. Mom's sitting over there getting ideas. Again, if you make one too big, it's easy just to break a piece off and roll them down. Okay, we're going to check our chocolate again. Okay, it's getting to the point where we can start to work with it. We're going to put it in for 45 more seconds, and we're going to finish our cake pops, and then we're going to have to stick them. Now, they sell entire kits that you can buy for cake pops. Comes with sticks, bags, and zip ties, so that you can actually make them, package them, whole 9 yards if you want to do them for parties. Anything you can think of. It comes basically with a little Ziploc bag that doesn't seal and a silver twist tie. And then you can decorate them any way you wish. Personally, I use skewers. A little pack of cake pop sticks that comes with bags and twist ties is like $8. 200 skewers downstairs is like 75 cents. Anybody want to know where I went? We got skewers from downstairs. Once you get to the end, dump whatever you have left in your hand, and then take that and make one last ball out of it. Hmm? 15 exactly. Not bad for not paying attention, right? Now, One thing with your skewers, they tend to be a week long, okay? I try not to give my kids anything that's this long, just because I'm the one that gets stabbed with it. So what we're gonna do with them is cut them right in half. Now, any chef's knife will work for this. Put them in the center where you wanna cut and push down one time, okay? It's not most likely gonna cut through unless you have a great knife or a hard way to push down. However, if I push all the way through these right now, anyone would guess what's gonna happen? Okay, I push down as hard as I can and I grab one side and I lift, okay? It cuts right through them and they don't go anywhere, which is slightly safer than just chopping through them, okay? No, they didn't splinter at all. The edges are all clean, okay? By putting enough force down with the blade of the knife, it keeps them from breaking, okay? Also, when you're using these, if you're using the pointed sides, I recommend putting the pointed side in the cake pop, just so you don't have the point on the back side. Now, our chocolate is almost workable. And for this first step, you don't need it to be completely smooth. You just need it to be hot enough to where you can get some liquid. Can everybody see that? Okay, it's almost runny. The reason we do this in 2 stages, because you're going to take your sticks and you want to dip them about 3/4 of an inch to an inch and then stab them into your cake pop. And what that's going to do, we're going to put it in the refrigerator, actually in the freezer, and that chocolate's going to harden, and as it hardens, it's going to hold that dough on it, so when you re-dip the whole thing, it'll keep it on the stick. Now, if you push down and it goes all the way through, it's not that big of a deal. You can only go as far as the tray, and the bottom of the pop is on the tray. So you're not going to worry about going through it. And then once we dip them in chocolate and add that extra coating to them, it should be okay. We get it from a company. We go through cases and cases and cases of cake a day. And for us to be able to bake the amount of cake that we need would take a space unbelievable, and the consistency wouldn't be, we would not just be able to do it consistently. So we purchase all of our cakes as a cake blank, like you saw with me, and then we decorate everything from that. And I believe it is strictly a chocolate cake with red food coloring additive, and then we use cream cheese icing for all of our red velvet cakes, and we only get it in that round size, okay? Yeah. Okay, everybody can see what we did. Now, if you grab these sticks and pick them up, what happens? Stick falls out. So we're gonna throw them in the freezer real quick. Again, as it's been sitting here, it's gotten smoother yet than what it was. And we may need to work this more than once, but we're gonna try and dip a few pops in it, and then if we have to, we can put this back in the microwave. If you're using a double boiler, it tends to work slightly better for dipping your product because you can leave it over your hot water and then continue to dip it. Since we are gonna dip frozen or almost frozen cake balls in this, it's going to cool it down quite rapidly, so we will need to work quickly, and we may have to heat it up again. We're going to take our sprinkles and put them in a small bowl. And again, you can do any color sprinkles you want. You can leave them plain. You don't have to do this. Again, we put them in there just long enough for that chocolate to set, okay? So you really have to work quickly, and I'm sure I'm going to break at least one of these, just because that's what happens. You want to slightly twist them so some of the chocolate drips off, and then you either want to roll them or dip them, and then just stand them up on your plate, okay? Any type of sprinkles you can think of will work for this, okay? You can just go straight in the bottom, so you do half and half, or again, you can roll it across so you get it more covered. These will set firm in about 25 to 40 minutes, okay? Or I can throw them in the freezer for about 5 minutes, and they'll harden enough to where we can get them off. The first ones that I've done are almost ready to handle, okay? The colder you can get the tray, the easier they will pop off of it, okay? And it's not a bad idea to line it with parchment first, because then you can pick the parchment up and it kind of helps you. But if you get your tray cold again, they'll pop off relatively easy.